Hello kings, queens, and majesties, welcome to Whalestat. I'm Slice of Otaku, and everyone wants to deal more damage. From waifu lovers to meta slaves, at the end of the day, we all want to play the game, and if done well enough, the damage can be insane, especially if you have a DPS character to lean on. That being said, for as paraded and cherished as 5-star characters may be, there actually are a number of 4-star DPS characters that rival, and in some cases, may even exceed the capabilities of their 5-star alternatives. And for the sake of this video, that number begins with 5. Xiangling. This master chef is not afraid to oversee her enemies and is easily one of the best pyro characters in the game right now. Mind you, she has been in the game since the very beginning, so that's saying a whole lot. Granted, she's actually gotten even stronger as time has gone on, but more on that in a bit. Xiangling is able to serve enemies a platter of pain, mostly by way of her elemental burst, Pyronado. For 10 seconds, this overgrown Beyblade will spin around your active character, dealing pyro damage to anything it comes into contact with. And at Constellation 4, that duration becomes 14 seconds, which is time we will be very happy to have. The energy requirement for this burst of hers is on the higher end of the spectrum at 80, making energy recharge a pretty important thing for her, which honestly is not helped all too much by her spicy gummy bear of an elemental burst, as it may or may not land hits required for her to generate energy particles. And this is pretty much why when the game first released, most players had no idea just how incredible she is, because it takes pairing her up with a pyro battery to really show off her potential. And there is no better assistant chef than Bennett. He is a beast of his support on account of his damage buffing elemental burst, and the incredibly speedy cooldown of his elemental skill makes generating energy for Xiangling a piece of cake. But listen, this cake has layers. Pyronado is able to snapshot, which means, like a well-marinated dish, it is able to retain the flavorful buffs it is exposed to, even without the sauce from Bennett's platter-like burst being on the field, so long as it is able to be there for even just a little while. That being said, Bennett is not the only one providing buffs, as Xiangling is a self-buffer as well. At Constellation 1, enemies hit by Gooba's flames have their pyro resistance reduced by 15% for 6 seconds, and at Constellation 6, during the 14 seconds of Pyronado, all party members receive a 15% pyro damage bonus. Xiangling and her assistant are professionals. They can cater to several team compositions with them at the center, providing a full course of flames. But wait, there's more, and that's because Update 2.0 of the game provided us the incredible Emblem of Severed Fate artifact set, which is like the perfect topping on what is already such an exquisite character. As a reminder, we want energy recharge on Xiangling for the sake of using Pyronado as much as possible. And would you look at that, 2-piece adds 20% energy recharge, and 4-piece increases burst damage by 25% of our total energy recharge, up to a maximum of 75% bonus damage. This is unreal. Pyronado just got stronger and more frequent, and I was really happy to have this change to the menu since I absolutely hated farming for the Crimson Witch of Flame set. And I almost forgot, with another pyro character on the very same team as her, like Bennett, we're able to benefit from Pyro Elemental Resonance and receive a 25% buff to attack. As for what weapons work well on her, good lord, options galore. And good options too. For 5 stars, we've got the likes of Staff of Homa, Engulfing Lightning, and Skyward Spine, but since you're watching a video on 4-star characters, we'll focus more on the 4-star options. Wavebreaker's Fin is obscenely powerful. It has an attack percentage substat, and for every point of the party's combined maximum energy capacity, Xiangling's burst damage is increased by 0.12% at base, with a maximum of 40% increase being possible. At Refinement 5, that is an increase of 0.24% with a cap of 80% increased burst damage, which is obviously very good. We've also got the catch with a favorable substat of energy recharge, increasing burst damage by 16% and burst crit rate by 6% at base. At Refinement 5, aka a whole lot of fishing, burst damage is increased by 32% and burst crit rate is increased by 12%. Those are her standout picks, but Deathmatch and Dragon's Bane work too. A well-built Xiangling team can clear the abyss and enemies in general to great effect and potentially faster than plenty of 5-star centric teams. Number 4, Kaeya. Alongside the Traveler, Kaeya is about as free-to-play as free-to-play gets. Being accustomed to games where the first characters you receive are bottom-of-the-barrel trash, I certainly expected Kaeya to be of a similar sort and benched him before ever really giving him a proper chance. But when I finally did, oh man, my heart melted. And listen, I will be real with you. When it comes to being a cryo DPS, Kaeya has some pretty serious competition. And I'm talking about some of the best DPS characters in the game, period. Ganyu and Ayaka. It's really hard to compare to the likes of these two, but I will say that their introductions to the game have made Kaeya even stronger than he was originally, which we'll get to in a moment. But seriously, the reason I, as a whale, use this devilishly handsome character instead of those two at times is because of just how fun he is to play. His combat is refreshing, and maybe if you've been playing with him non-stop for ages you may disagree, but as far as I'm concerned it is a pleasure. But yeah, with the release of Ganyu, we received the Blizzard Strayer artifact set, which up until just recently, I have embarrassingly enough been calling the Blizzard Slayer set. Too much anime. Anyways, this set is downright ridiculous on Kaeya. The 2-piece benefit of a 15% cryo damage bonus is wonderful for the sake of making his elemental skill and burst more powerful, but it is that 4-piece bonus that takes things to the next level. With it, when we attack an enemy affected by cryo, our crit rate is increased by 20%. And if that enemy is frozen, oh man, we are looking at a 40% increase to crit rate instead. Now take that and combine it with Kaeya's first constellation, which increases the crit rate of his normal and charge attacks to enemies affected by cryo by 15%. But wait, there's more. If we go ahead and add another cryo character to the team besides Kaeya, we will be able to achieve Cryo Resonance, which most notably provides our team with a 15% bonus to crit rate against enemies that are frozen or affected by cryo. So that is an easily achievable total of 70% crit rate, 55% if not a normal or charge attack, but hey, that is still a lot, especially when paired with some of our many weapon options. For 5-star options, we've got Mist Splitter Reforged, which with Kaeya is really interesting, and we've got a whole video on that, so check it out. Jade Cutter, which is really good on anyone, Skyward Blade, Freedom Sworn, and Summit Shaper. For the part you probably care about, 4-star options, we have the Black Sword Battle Pass weapon that stands to increase our crit rate even further, up to 27.6% at level 90. Which in tandem with everything we said previously, has us at a crit rate of 97.6% with minimal investment, which is insane. Not to mention the fact that normal and charge attack damage is increased by 20% at base and 40% at Refinement 5, and the thing is able to regenerate health for us, making Kaeya a self-healer. Beyond that, damn near every 4-star sword works with him with results ranging from decent to well, so it's hard to go wrong in this department. In fact, the 3-star Harbinger of Dawn, with its substat of crit damage and increased the crit rate by 14% at base when Kaeya's HP is above 90%, which becomes a 28% buff to crit rate at Refinement 5, is fantastic despite its lower base attack and such. And with how high Kaeya's crit rate can become without trying much at all, it is definitely worth it to invest heavily into his crit damage. And if done well enough, his elemental skill effectively becomes a shotgun, absolutely destroying all adversaries before you. And I love pairing him up with Chongyun because with him, Kaeya's normal and charge attacks also become cryo, but again, for more on that, check out our Kaeya freeze video. And besides Chongyun, Rosaria can be really fun as well. Number 3, Beidou. Beidou is an absolute powerhouse of a unit. Seriously, she is not only really powerful, but is really fun to play as well. Her gameplay is incredibly unique amongst Genshin Impact characters as she possesses a counter mechanic. This affords her the ability to not only deal a whole lot of damage, but defend against it as well, thus adding to her overall survivability a whole lot. That being said, her stock in that realm has to an extent been reduced along with pretty much all shielders in the game on account of corrosion, which is a mechanic I am not all too fond of personally, but it is what it is. Perfectly countering your adversaries requires a bit more learning than most other abilities in the game, especially if you're not used to that sort of thing in games to begin with, but ultimately enemy attack patterns in Genshin Impact can be pretty predictable, so you'll get the hang of it eventually for sure. And when you do, it will definitely be a rewarding and satisfying experience. That being said, sometimes the enemy AI can be really dumb in this game, so there may be moments of frustration and annoyance that go beyond your ability to counter. Fischl and Oz are like the perfect pair for Captain Beidou to carry on her shoulder. Fischl is such a great battery for Beidou's 80 energy cost elemental burst, which we will want active as much as possible. Beidou honestly works wonders with a number of sub DPS characters at that. And once you have her at Constellation 2, which allows the lightning of her elemental burst to jump to 2 more targets, you'll really see a whole lot of destruction in her wake. And it's not as if Constellation 2 is her only good one. Each of them is able to improve her capabilities pretty well. And that Electro Elemental Resonance allows us to accumulate energy a lot easier as well. In regards to artifacts, Beidou is actually pretty flexible, but again, this is yet another character that I would run the 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate on. If we're talking weapons, the ideal 5-star options will be Wolf's Gravestone and then the Unforged. In regards to 4 stars, we are looking at the incredible Battle Pass weapon, Serpent Spine, with a substat of crit rate and the ability Wave Splitter, which at base makes it so that every 4 seconds a character characters on field, they will deal an extra 6% damage and take 3% more damage. This can get up to 5 stacks and is reduced by 1 every time you take damage and is reset anytime you leave the field. At refinement 5, that is 10% more damage per stack and 2% additional damage per stack, making this a sort of high risk, high reward kind of thing. Now again, for the sake of transparency, corrosion thoroughly ruins this, but otherwise it's such a great trade-off that although a bit risky, can be just the sort of challenge certain players may really enjoy. Then we've got things like Lithic Blade and Prototype Archaic. Number 2, Ningguang. Ningguang at times very much feels like a 5-star character. It's crazy that such a money-oriented character is actually a free-to-play one. She to me is such a fantastic Catalyst user and exactly what you might be looking for when you consider the weapon type on paper. When it comes to single target damage and being a burst DPS that lacks energy issues, she most definitely fulfills the job requirements. That being said, you'll really want to invest in the character a bit in regards to artifacts, at least to see her at her best. And that will mostly be by way of 2-piece Archaic Petra, which should be a definite, followed by some manner of 18% attack increase by way of something like Gladiators or Shimenawa's artifact sets. You'll also want to pair her up with another Geo character for the sake of achieving Geo Elemental Resonance, which increases shield strength by 15%, and while protected by a shield, our damage will be increased by 15%, and dealing damage to enemies will reduce their Geo Resonance by 20% for 15 seconds. This is really too useful to pass up on. But what you should pass up on are Geo teammates like Ito and Noelle, as they are not a good match at all. For weapons, your 5-star options will be the Lost Prayer of Sacred Winds, Memory of Dust, and Skyward Atlas. As for 4 stars, the Battle Pass weapon Solar Pearl works wonders. Crit rate is a substat and the ability makes it so that at base, normal attack hits increase elemental skill and burst damage by 20% for 6 seconds, whereas elemental skill and burst damage increase normal attack damage by 20% for 6 seconds. And at refinement 5, those buffs double up to 40%. The flaw here is that the weapon does not buff charge attacks, which we'll be using a whole lot with Ningguang, which is a bit of a compromise, but for those benefits, it is not too bad. Dodoko Tails, the event weapon, is really good too, with a substat of attack percentage, and this is a weapon that at base provides focus to charge attacks by way of its skill, which makes it so that normal attack hits increase charge attack damage by 16% for 6 seconds, and charge attack hits on enemies increase attack by 8% for 6 seconds. And at refinement 5, that is 32% and 16%. Then you've got Widsith. These are not her only options, just her standout ones. Also, when we're using Ningguang, we're going to want to animation cancel as we normal attack, otherwise she will be a little slow, which funny enough is why I dropped her almost immediately upon trying her early on. And the simplest way of doing so would just be to walk forward as you attack with her. She's also one of the few characters in the game with a skin, if that means anything to you. Number 1, Yenfei. I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, Yenfei is a 5-star character. The excitement I felt towards the release of this character was even greater than what I have felt for most 5 stars. I love absolutely everything about her, and she is just so fun to play as. Unlike some other Catalyst users, we do not have to think a whole lot and animation cancel or anything like that to use her properly. It all comes down to achieving our 3 to 4 stacks depending on if you have Constellation 6 or not, and then delivering a more powerful charge attack. And at that, every one of her constellations is incredible. Yenfei's attacks are speedy and have a good bit of range to them. My only issue, if anything, comes down to auto-targeting, which is an issue bigger than Yenfei and impacts a number of characters besides her. Support characters of interest being the likes of Bennett and Xingqiu. For artifacts, 4-piece Crimson Witch of Flames is awesome on her, but truly, as I said before, I hate that domain, so I run her with the Wanderer set instead. For Catalyst, so much works with this character that more likely than not, whatever you have will be just fine. For 5 stars, Lost Prayers of the Sacred Winds is king, whereas Widsith, Blackcliff Agate, and Solar Pearl are the 4-star standouts. If you main any of these characters, I am certain you will have a wonderful experience, 4-star or not. Most of them are just downright fun, and that is what video games are all about, entertainment. I have been your host, Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.